Hi there, Mike. Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions. So, today we're just going to talk, man. DAC measurements, do they matter? We'll discuss that, and we will talk a little bit about the toxic nature of the audiophile community. Oh boy, spoiler alert, everybody's toxic. You know, a lot's been said about DACs, especially in the last couple of years. I'm of the opinion that, like headphones, there's just too many. Now with headphones I can see why, and I've talked about this before in the law of diminishing returns video, but I can see why companies come out with headphones more so than I can see why they come out with DAC after DAC after DAC. I mean, headphones do have pretty radically different sound signatures depending on the company in question, but as far as, you know, DACs are concerned and amps, the sound doesn't change all that much from amp to amp, and I will stick by this. I've said this over and over again. It mostly has to do more so with output impedance and power output. I think those are the two main determining factors when deciding on an amp. You want it to be able to power your headphone, obviously, and I think sound-wise, it really comes down to warm tilt versus neutral, and in my opinion, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you really don't have to delve any deeper than that. The question becomes then, why are there so many companies trying to get a piece of the pie? I mostly think that has to do. I mean, if you think about these obscure companies that come out of nowhere and try to start selling amps. A lot of them take new av guys, you know, the guy that had the blog about the schematics for the Objective 2. Of course, they're open source, so anybody can take them and make an amp out of them, and of course a lot of people started doing just that. And I think from that point on, it was around 2011. From that point on, it just skyrocketed to where everybody wants to make an amp now. I mean, even I thought about making an amp. Mostly because I thought it would be fun, but I don't know. It's just like, buy our amp. It's like, well, why? It's probably going to sound roughly the same as any other neutral-ish amp with a low output impedance. Now, of course, DAC chips do vary, but I still think that in the grand scheme of things, there's just not that much. I've heard about roughly 30 amps at the time of this video, and there's not that much different. I can't really tell all that much of a difference between them from amp to amp, especially in the lower tiered categories. There are differences, but they're pretty subtle. You know, the E10K up against some other amps does sound a little bit grainier, but you would never know that unless you had a bunch of amps side by side to go back and forth with. The Mojo does sound the best to my ear so far out of all the ones I've listened to, along with the Bryston BHA1. You know, I said before that the Mojo was a significant sound upgrade. It does have other issues. It runs kind of hot, and it can be fairly finicky and temperamental, but I mean, it's a great piece of kit, and I will stand by that as well. I mean, there's a time and place for everything, measurements included. I definitely think that measurements are important with regard to headphones, but with amps and DACs, I mean, for instance, some DACs measure terribly but sound really good. And I was talking to my friend Luke about this. Shout out to Luke for letting me demo some of his gear. For instance, an example of an amp that measures horribly is a bottlehead crack. Now, the distortion in that, the perceived distortion in that, is actually what makes the amp sound good. I have a stereo system, an old Panasonic from 2003, right? It has probably sky-high output impedance, meaning there's tons of distortion. But guess what? You plug in my HD600s and it sounds absolutely incredible. So I can't get on board with the whole measurement thing. Now, I do really appreciate companies like JDS Labs who make amps that have low output impedance, because that means that, you know, a wide variety of headphones are going to sound good out of the amp, because because the amp in question will deliver the same load across various headphone impedance ranges, which is a big reason why it is important to have an amp that delivers or that provides a low output impedance, such as the Objective 2, the Atom, the NX4. Amps like that are just are very valuable in a home studio if you plan on upgrading down the road, and if you sort of prefer a more clinical, neutral type of sound. If you measure a DAC and it measures bad or there's distortion, like, who's going to be able to hear that distortion? You'd have to jack up the volume to like unlistenable levels, which nobody will do. So what's the point? I mean, nobody's going to hear that distortion at ear-piercingly loud levels. For instance, a measurement was done on the Zen and it measured bad, but does it sound good? Yeah. Everybody I've talked to and everything I've read completely contradicts those measurements, because in real world testing, do you give a damn about measurements? No. Nobody cares. Like, if you're listening to music, that's the last thing on your mind. Freaking scientific measurement. And this is just my opinion, but it got me a little fired up, because out of the 30 plus amps that I've listened to, not one single one sounded bad. Not one. I mean, and that should tell you something, because, companies realize that we as audiophiles are never satisfied, and it's just human nature. We're always looking for the next best thing, and so they prey and feed on that, and that's why we've got all these ridiculously named amps coming out all the time, because there's a market for it. So the other really, really important thing I want to talk about is that people don't buy amps based on measurements. They buy mostly based on what they need to accomplish in their studio or space, and that should always be first and foremost top priority when you're looking for an amp. What do you need it to do? It's really not even about sound at that point yet. I mean, it's about, what kinds of inputs and outputs do you need? What are you going to be using it for? Are you going to be using it for gaming with your console, gaming on PC? Do you need a separate amp? Do you need to listen wirelessly? There's just so many things that go into it, aside from, does this DAC measure well? And like I said, headphone measurements are great, because we can kind of get an idea of how a headphone is going to sound based on tangible things like bass reproduction, mid-range, treble, that sort of thing. But yeah, as far as DACs are concerned, I don't know. I just think it's a little bit overblown, to be honest. But yeah, let me know down below. Do you guys care about measurements when you're choosing a DAC? I'd really like to know. Yo, dog, I heard you like measurements, so we measured yo amp DAC not once, not twice, but 3 times, plus we stacked measurements on top of those 3 measurements just to make sure yo DAC measures up against other DACs that have similar measurements. If you call now, we'll throw in an additional set of measurements shipped to yo ass free of charge. Just pay shipping and handling for them extra measurements. You feel me, dawg? The other issue is that, on the flip side of it, if there weren't any new amps and DACs that came out, I wouldn't have shit to review, and that's the honest truth. I mean, as much as I complain about it, I really, really enjoy receiving products from companies and being able to write about them and make videos like this one. But I don't know, man. As far as the toxic nature of the audiophile community, Metal571 just came out with a good video. Apparently his last video, but even though I know he'll be back. And if you're watching this, Metal, I know you'll be back. Because like you said, when you're in the hobby and it's something that you're passionate about, you can't stay away for too long. And I don't know, I was talking to Solid Lad earlier today about this, and he brought out something really, really important, in that it's not really about one specific community that's toxic, because they all are. And no matter where you go, you're always going to see negative people in any niche. I see it all the time just browsing the internet. I mean, people are just hateful, you know, and it exists everywhere. So trying to confine it, and I'm not saying that metal was trying to confine it to just the audiophile community, but what I'm saying is that it's everywhere. And the point being that there's always going to be toxic people. And like Metal said, I mean, this is just audio, dude. And people get really butthurt about opinions, and especially with like regards to Grado products. If you have any semblance of a negative opinion or impression of a Grado headphone, you will be met with hate. And that's pretty much a given. I mean, out of the 70-80 videos that I have on my channel, only 2 got negative like to dislike ratios, and one was a SR325E video and the other was a HD25 video that was not a negative review. But point being that I find it best to just be as nice as you can to people and try to be helpful, ignore the trolls, and just, I don't know, keep it moving, man. It's just, life is too short for all that kind of mess. But yeah. Is that your own idea?
But is that even your own idea?
Or something Snake told you?
And one more thing before I forget, you know, I just want to say, man, if you come to this channel and you have something inside of you, you know, something in your heart that causes you to lash out, you should probably look inside yourself, man, and figure out what's inside of you that's causing you to want to comment like that. I mean, you know, you never know what people are going through, man. I don't go to other people's channels and spew my verbal diarrhea all over their pages and in the comment section and stuff like that, because you know, I'm still working on myself, but at the same time, I don't have that inside of me. So when somebody says something to me, it basically just goes right through. Now, but I would urge you guys. I'm not talking to my regular subscribers here. I'm talking to people that come here and are tempted to write something, you know, negative or hateful in the comment section. If that's you, just think about what is it inside of yourself that needs to be cleaned out, because it's not me. It's not my problem. It's not my issue. It's something to do with your own thought process and, you know, your own issues. And we all have them, but working through them does not mean attacking somebody else, because that's on you. That's not on me, man. That's not my problem. So I just wanted to get that out. If you have something that you're going through, man, why not just come out and talk about it? I mean, I think this channel moving forward, I'll maybe do more of those types of videos where I talk about some of my own struggles and stuff like that, because, you know, I think a lot of the time YouTubers like to put on this face that everything is completely fine, when everybody in the entire universe is going through something traumatic, whether that's psychologically, physically, any number of things could be going on in someone's life. So I think we just all need to take a step back and realize that. I mean, it's such a what I'm talking about, you know, what I make videos about is it's so small. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it's so trivial. I think what people should focus more on is themselves and, you know, their spiritual lives, and trying to connect to God in any way they can, because it's really, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. I mean, I have to make a living and I have to do what I have to do to survive on the planet, but yeah, I just really wanted to get that out. I mean, I was just thinking about that today, and I hope it resonated with you guys. So anyway, yeah, that's about it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Leave me some love in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. If you like what I do here and you want to support the channel, hit that Patreon link down below, and always remember, don't feed the troll. Yeah. Yeah, check. Review brought to you by Stu. Here's the coda. I'm nasty on the mic, call me warm soda. Chopped up this beat real fine like cold produce. Steady in my veggies so I can focus on my David Copperfield, y'all hocus pocus. A little loopy when I wrote this, esoteric dopeness. Cultivating the will of a soldier, fighting through the pain like Dooku. I told ya, sold you on my style, snapping on cats like Private Pile. I get semi-wild every once in a while, 911 on the dial, alone at the top with no rival. Dark is my world without a Bible, without God's love there's no survival. So my mindset is tribal, yeah, my mindset is tribal. Yeah, my mindset is tribal.